Hi, my name is Mike Hass. I own and operate Idyllwild Farm, which is a certified organic four-season vegetable farm at Little Rock Farm in Camp Springs, Kentucky. And what I primarily grow is greenhouse tomatoes, eggplant, peppers, salad greens, and the four-season part of that is growing and selling all year round. And how that came to be is I went to college in agriculture and worked on farms, owned a farm in New England, had been a farm manager, and then was farming here, and Stephanie Zink, who owns Little Rock Farm, suggested I come farm here and use the greenhouses and fields. So there are a variety of best management practices that I use here at the farm. The challenge here is that the fields are slightly sloping, so it's about not giving water like we've had in August, the energy to start taking soil away, and it's the challenge between having bare soil for seeding and transplanting and having it covered as much as possible. So some of the things I employ are summer cover crops, winter cover crops. I try to keep the beds, the rows that I'm growing in, short so that there's not enough time for the water to get the energy that it wants. And I use landscape fabric, as well as we keep permanent sod between a lot of the various fields that we're growing crops on. And that's all basically about water energy as well as trapping soil if any of it moves. There are three main factors in how I define success besides financial. The first thing is I grow food for people to eat, and I sell at farmers markets twice a week. And so one thing that's important to me and a definition of success is, do people like what I'm growing? And then do they have any interest in how I'm growing the food that they're eating? And that leads to relationships with consumers, especially in urban areas, and it allows me to give them an understanding of what agriculture is about and how we do what we do. So when that goes well, it's successful. Another definition of success for me is what's going on in the field. So how are the crops responding? How are the best management practices I talked about earlier? How is the soil responding to that? Is there any movement? Are there things I need to take care of? So when everything's growing well and when I don't see a lot of challenges, especially after all the rains we've had in August, that makes me feel successful. And then the final thing I really focus on is am I adjusting my operation to changing conditions? And that's whether it's climate, that's whether it's field conditions. Am I changing up in ways that I need to in order to grow successfully? The way I look at stewardship and taking care of the land takes several forms. It's challenging as a tenant farmer when you talk to ag accountants or financial people about stewardship, because for me, they look at what I might be spending on cover crops or green manures and say, where's the return? And so from a financial perspective, they're always questioning that. But I think if you look at things like how old the soil is, it's tens of thousands of years old. And I was listening to a show this morning, and they were talking about how the soil that we have here, the biologically active soil, this is the only planet that exists on. And so when you think of things like that, it's critical to be thoughtful about the resource that we're lucky enough to be able to have and use. So that's taking care of that, both current and for the future, is a motivator. Another thing that I think of is, am I responding to new research? So when I think about what we know about what's going on in the soil, for instance, biologically, compared to when I was in college, the amount of research and science on that is fascinating and it's expansive. And so that makes me wonder if how I'm taking care of the land, how I'm doing what I'm doing is responsive to that new knowledge. And I think that it's critical that we don't look at stewardship in a static sense, but constantly evolve how we do what we do and understand its impacts and try to reduce those. So there's two primary things I can think about in the next 5 years where the Conservation District and related agencies could support me and others. In the first case, I'm a certified organic grower, and organic matter is one of the critical measures in how we look at organic growing and the certification process. And related to that, especially now, is soil carbon. And it would be great to have some guidance from the Conservation District as well as related agencies on how to adequately determine soil carbon and have best management practices for what I consider to be the third resource the agencies should be looking at in terms of how to implement measures to increase soil carbon. And soil carbon isn't going to be the biggest fraction of carbon that we try to reduce, but in my opinion, every bit helps. And that's one of the areas I think the agencies and the Conservation District would be of great support. And then the other thing is the Conservation District has done a great job with the farm tour in making links between urban, suburban, and rural residents. And in the next 5 years, I hope that they can continue with success in terms of creating links between soil and water and their conservation and their use with urban and suburban residents, because they're an equal part of the puzzle in how our water in particular gets treated. And I think the district's done a great job in reaching out to them, and I hope in the next 5 years they're able to do that even more so.